get unnecessarily lambasted. All round, it's just been a lose, lose, lose. So I'm coming to this like the next time I want to get this squeaky clean. And I can't support the resolutions, Mr. Chair, and I acknowledge your work with the Chief Financial Officer on this, because like new councillor, Councillor Newman from Manariwa, he has quickly grasped that there are deficiencies here. I have to say, and I say it politely, there are deficiencies in the report. There are the deficiencies in the descriptions of things. The very first resolution you see up here today, A, refers to the new proposal, yet that's not what was funded. The National Ocean Water Sports Centre was what it was called, and it was in 2010, and it was a relationship agreement that effectively, looking back, lapsed 2 years later because it had 21 conditions, and just so many of those conditions were not met. And in 2012, Mr. Chair, yes, it was brought before the Strategy and Finance Committee, as it was called at that time. It was 3 paragraphs. You can go and look at it. There was no mention of the relationship agreement at that time. In 2016, just last year, a resolution went through the Strategy and Finance Committee again calling for a report. No report was forthcoming. A memo was distributed. And so there is just a whole history here of lack of transparency. We have to offer it to Auckland and get our ducks in a row going forward. I am not opposed to a Yachting New Zealand sponsored with government and others, other funding partners and possibly ourselves, supporting a high-performance centre somewhere in Auckland with a community component. I'm very willing to look at that formal proposal. Right now, we don't have that formal proposal. We need to do our business well, members. Otherwise, we are open to going down that ruinous path that this whole episode has seen the sorry side of for some 7 years now. So I'm not going to be supporting the recommendations up there. I think what I will be moving, or maybe the Mayor, I'm open to the Mayor moving along the lines that the matter be deferred until such time as a formal proposal, including business case, is received from Yachting New Zealand, including confirmation of complementary funding partners.
That's basically what I gave you. But it was good to spend the next hour.
So you have a second, the Mayor is seconding that, is he?
I'll second that. Mr. Chairman, I'm not quite sure why we'd need to take this to a division, or in fact why we've got disagreement around the table on it. What do we know? We know that we probably need a new funding source because it's likely to be outside of the North Shore area. We have that from David Abercrombie. We know that we will have new partners. We know that there will be a new proposal, but we haven't yet got it. The question I asked to David Abercrombie is, why wouldn't we wait to receive your proposal in May when we've got a concrete matter to deal with, and then make a decision on that proposal? That's the way that you'd normally go about doing something. I'm not against a high performance and community centre and a community centre. It may well be quite good for Auckland. I don't think that anybody has raised, well, certainly he didn't raise the fact that this might go outside of Auckland. Auckland is the logical place for this to happen if it's going to happen. But I do say that we as a council have to act in a logical way. Before we approve something, we need to know what we're approving. And at the moment, none of us have got any idea what we're approving. So I suppose my question is to you as the mover of the original, of the amendment, Mr. Chair. Is there any reason why we need to pass this resolution now rather than waiting for the business case that David Abercrombie has said he would get to us by May? Because I haven't yet heard a reason why we need to pass something today. If you've got a good answer to that, I might come around to your way of thinking, but I don't see the need to do this now. I do see the advantage in making a decision when we've got a clear proposal to make a decision on.
Technically, we're actually talking about the amendment, but however, to answer your question, I think we're actually just trying to keep this alive. We're trying to show good faith to Yachting New Zealand and the government, and we're actually trying to get out there so that we can look at the alternative sites. So that is an answer to that. So back to the amendment. So we have an amendment here which is moved by Councillor Darby and seconded by the Mayor. So specifically talking about the amendment, please.
I move the question be put.
Is there a second to that?
Second that.
For the amendment, we haven't had anyone speak to the amendment.
Yes, he just did.
I would have thought it's a bit precipitous, but, you know.
If there are no other speakers, we might as well.
Well, no, there are other speakers. It's Councillor
speak to
Walker,
the
Councillor
amendment.
Fletcher, Councillor Watson.
I'll speak to the amendment.
I'm-
In essence, speaking to the amendment, I'm speaking against
Okay,
it.
so, okay, do we want to, let's do a vote to see whether we're going to put it now. So we'll do that by division, no doubt.
So what are we doing?
Can I just say something?
No, you can't. No.
Chairman,
I just do it by division.
Okay. Put in, okay, to see whether it needs put, so by division.
Point of order.
Darby and Mayor.
Was there a second for the procedural motion?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's what I was just going to say. I actually, having listened,
Wait a minute, there was a seconder, and I'm sorry, I don't know who it was, but it was over there somewhere. Member Typery? Okay, so you know what you're voting on, people?
No.
The closure.
They're voting on the amendment be put.
Okay,
Oh, okay, the procedural motion.
what we're voting on,
Closure motion.
whether it be put, proceed.
Just point of order, Mr Chair, could we just check that it doesn't have to be a set number of speakers before that can be put?
The motion was put.
To the amendment be put, there's only one person spoke to the amendment, that was the Mayor. In fact, I don't know if he spoke
Will
to
we
it.
just clarify that?
Christian and Mayor.
Had one person who spoke
And
to it.
Councillor Watts is raising the question, in the standing orders, we have to have a set number of people speak first.
So the debate was going on about the motion, the chair's motion, right? And then, quickly, Councillor Darby put an amendment, seconded by the Mayor. And then the
that.
chair spoke about it, and then suddenly Councillor Fletcher put a procedural motion that the matter be put. So, at that stage, we were talking about the amendment. So we're now voting on the procedural motion to put the amendment.
Mr Chairman, if it's of any assistance, I'm happy to withdraw this, but it does strike me that in the discussion that we've had thus far, this amendment has been foreshadowed and it has been well traversed. But in the interests of democracy, I'm happy to withdraw, and I'm sure that the seconder would be happy to withdraw as well.
Right, and I'm sure in the spirit of getting to lunch, the three
Chair
people
could have
that are
merely
going to
withdrawn
speak
it.
will speak briefly. So we have Councillor Walker, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Watson.
So
Not to speak to the...
I'm speaking in support of the amendment. I agree with the Mayor. We should not be deferring the grant. This thing should be considered afresh. We certainly shouldn't be delegating anything to anybody to pursue it. Something like this is geographically specific, so we need to know precisely where it is in order to determine any merit around any community component, because there may not be any merit around any community component depending on where it is.
Councillor Fletcher.
No, Mr Chairman.
Councillor Watson.
Very quickly, the original proposal was contingent on the specific location and the community component. We have no idea whatsoever what that might be in any new such proposal. So the Mayor has quite correctly summed up the situation where we need to see that proposal. Otherwise, we're voting on something we don't know anything much about for a substantial sum of money. And in circumstances that prior to this have been controversial, have been convoluted, and have caused a great deal of angst in the community. Now, if we're not to repeat that again somewhere else in Auckland, which, as track record to date would seem to suggest we're on the coast of doing that, then we need to have a proper proposal that we consider in light of the council's interest in this, which go to location and return to the community. Simple as that.
Right. There are no more speakers, so I'm going to put the amendment, and I'm hoping that no one calls for a division, because that would not be the spirit of how this debate has occurred. So I'm putting the motion, which is the amendment. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Okay, it's carried. Right, thank you. We will stop for lunch now, and we will be back at 1:30, which gives you 26 minutes.
Substantive motion now?
That is the substantive motion.
substantive, yeah.